Okay, I think we're live now. Hello and welcome to our webinar series that we're doing in conjunction with the South Australian Department for Education. We are recording this, so as I mentioned, if people that are on the call, just keep your cameras off if you definitely don't want to be recorded in any way, shape or form. Before we jump into this afternoon's session, I did want to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. For me, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I am in Melbourne, but we have people joining us from all across South Australia, and my colleague Chris is up in Sydney. So there's a whole range of different traditional custodians that it's really important that we take a moment to pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Okay, so hello, I'm Kimberly. I work with the Google for Education team based out of Melbourne, as I said, and I sort of am the regional manager for the southern half of the country, so Victoria, South Australia, Tasmania. Although I did say that the other day, Chris, and then think that technically Western Australia has is in the southern half as well as the northern half.
That's right.
So anyway.
It's a weird division. And I'm Chris Betcher. I'm the program manager for Google Workspace adoption, and I look after helping our customers get the most out of their tools.
Awesome. And yes, if you haven't, I just put this slide in here, Chris, before we jumped in this afternoon, because if you, as you just did yourself, if you haven't seen the update, G Suite for Education has officially been rebranded as of only a couple of weeks ago. So if you're hearing it for the first time right now, don't worry, you're not alone. And so what was G Suite for Education is now known as Google Workspace for Education. And that will be the name for it moving forward. And we were also really excited to have the numbers updated, and we now have over 170 million users of Google Workspace for Education, which is a pretty phenomenal number, I think.
Indeed.
Okay, so we are going to, we may not take the full hour, though we are starting a bit late this afternoon, but this afternoon was talking a bit about projects and ways of planning and managing those. And so we wanted to look at using Google Sites for a project portfolio. Google Sites is a fabulous tool, and Chris is going to take us through that. And then we might quickly jump into looking at some templates and some that are inbuilt into the products, and then some great places to access some other templates that can be used as a really wonderful way of tracking student learning and progress, or your own as an educator as well. And then finish off with some note-taking and brainstorming tools. So Chris, I might hand over to you to share your screen if you would like, and jump straight into Google Sites.
Cool. Let me share this bit here. Go there. And right, okay. So yeah, I was going to talk with you about the concept of using sites as a portfolio tool. And when I say portfolio tool, I'm using it in a really broad sense. Just when you're working on anything that involves multiple components, like how do you bring them all together in some sort of single point of presence so that you can, hand that in. And I guess, in days gone by, kids would do classroom posters, or they create sort of wall charts or that kind of thing to kind of display their work. And I guess what I'm proposing here is using the idea of Google Sites as a kind of a one-stop shop, to use a hackneyed phrase, where you can bring all of your work together. And I've got an example here, which I'll show you in just a sec. But before I do, just how do you create a site from scratch? So I'm here on my Google Drive. I've just gone into a sort of a clean folder here so you can see what's going on. If I click on the new button up in the top corner there, you'll see this is where I can create new folders and docs and sheets and slides and so on. But if you go down to the bottom where it says more, you'll see you've got a couple of other options, and that's where Google Sites is hiding, just down there. So if you click on Sites, it will open up. The beautiful thing about the way Sites works now, Sites has been a product for Google for a long time, and it received a major revamp a couple of years ago. And one of the big changes was that a site is now, no matter, it could have hundreds of pages in it, but it still shows up inside your Google Drive as one single entity. So just like a doc or a sheet or a slide inside your Google Drive, a site will show up as a single entity as well, even though it could have hundreds of pages. So this is what it looks like when you come in here. You'll see, just give you a quick tour around the empty version, and I'll take you into one that I've prepared earlier. So you can see it's got a header section at the top here. If I scroll down, The bottom, there's a space at the bottom you can add a footer. So typical web page has a header across the top and a footer across the bottom and content in the middle. Over on the right-hand side, you've got basically 3 tabs. It's pretty easy to find your way around. The Insert tab for putting things into your pages, inserting. A Pages tab for creating more pages. And a Themes tab for changing the way your site looks. And there is a couple of options here to modify the way your site looks, but for the most part, it tries to keep it fairly uniform by offering a sort of a thematic approach. So, you know, if you wanted to change the color of something, I could change from blue to pink, for example, there, and it would change the underlying thematic color of the site, but it would change it everywhere. And that's by design, because websites are supposed to have that unified look, and as you go from page to page, so it's supposed to hang together in a kind of an aesthetically visual way. So I'm really interested in, well, 2 things. Let's go to the Pages tab for a second. To create a new page within your site, so let's just click on the New Page button, the plus sign at the bottom, and let's call this, I know, most websites have an About page, so let's create an About page. And you'll notice what automatically happens is it creates a menu for me across the top, and it adds in the home page, which I already had, and the About page. And if I was to go and put another one in there and call this, I don't know, Resources, when I add that, it will add another section. So the menu structure is all taken care of for you. You don't have to think about that. It just works. If you want to create little drop-down menus at the top, so for example, say I wanted my resource page to be a drop-down underneath the About page, you can simply click it and drag it and drop it on top of. You notice when I drag it up there, the About page gets a blue rectangle around it. If I just drop that there, that now becomes a sub-page. And you'll notice now I've got a little drop-down box at the top, and it shows resources as a drop-down. So pretty easy to create, you know, pretty intricate menu systems within here. Just create within your Pages panel there and drag and drop them into position. Now, the other thing that's kind of useful is in the Insert page here. This is where you can put all the content on your page. And the thing I love about Google Sites, if you're living in the Google world a lot and you're using docs and sheets and slides and YouTube and maps and all the other things that Google offers, this Insert panel, if you scroll down a bit, you'll see all of those things are right there. So if I wanted to put, say, a Google map on my page, I don't need to know any fancy coding. I just go down to Insert Map, choose that. I might put in Adelaide and just choose Adelaide there. And if that's what I'm happy with, I could zoom in if I wanted to change the way that looks. But when I'm happy with it, I just say select, and it pops it onto the page just like so. I can use these little blue bars on the side to resize it, make it bigger or smaller. And adding content to a page is really as simple as that, okay? So, for example, if your kids are doing some, you know, let's say you're taking your students on a, I don't know, the Year 6 annual trip to Canberra, right? And so you want to create a website about the trip. Well, you can easily go in and add things like maps and documents and, you know, slides and photographs. All of the things that you've done around that project of traveling to Canberra can all be contained really easily in one place. So that's kind of just a quick overview of sites and what it looks like from the beginning. But I want to show you one I made earlier. Let's close this one. And I'm going to open up this one. So I've, when I was teaching, I helped a lot of teachers work on what we call the science research project. It was a Year 10 thing, but the idea actually carries right across all sorts of year groups. So I actually got this from some real examples. These are New South Wales examples, but I think they carry across states. So let's say your students are doing a research project in science. And the example I found here was this student was looking at the effects of salt on the growth of yeast. So they were making yeast for bread, putting it into a container, and apparently yeast gives off carbon dioxide, carbon dioxide, I believe it is. And so this student's hypothesis was, if we add salt to the yeast, what effect does that have on how much carbon dioxide it gives off? So that was their science experiment, and that's what they wanted to know. So you can see what we've done here. We've used the text box tool, and the text box tool, when you click it, it just creates a text box, and I can just type just like that into that text box, and I can type anything I want on the page. That's pretty simple. I'm going to throw that away because that's obviously just junk typing. The other thing I can put in here is a YouTube video. So this particular student has actually used a service called Powtoon to make a little YouTube video here on what they were about to do. And what you do is you simply scroll down on the Insert tab here, select YouTube, go and pop in the address of the video you want, just like that, and it will just insert it onto the page. Adding content to sites pages, trivially easy. Now, down the bottom here, you can see we've got 3 columns. And the way that works is when you put a text box onto a page, you can actually pick up the text box and drag it around and move it into different positions. You see those blue lines appearing there all over the place? Wherever I drop this text box that I'm carrying right now with my mouse, the text box will go there. So if I was to drop it there where that blue line appears, it would append it to the text box underneath it. If I drag it to the middle there, it would put them between those 2 other text boxes. So dragging things around, really easy. You just look for the blue line. That'll tell you where it's about to go. Now,
hey, Chris, can I ask a question on that?
Yeah, sure.
If you know how you said it would append it to the text box if you put it below it. Does it attach it, and then can you move it again to another spot? Just that was a purely curiosity. Sorry.
Yeah. So if I grab this one and drag that one and drop it there, so the blue line.
It does sit as a separate text box still. Yeah.
And then they both form one single text box. So now I can drag the whole thing as one object.
Okay. Yeah. So it does make it into one object, not 2. Yeah. Sorry, that was my question. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I click on it one time, it's actually as one object. But if I click it again, you actually see it's split into 2 objects.
That's very clever.
Separate it back out. I can grab that and drag it back out and re-separate it again.
Very clever. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Now, what I've done in most science experiments, you usually have like a method. You talk about the results you got. You talk about, you discuss what you found as you did your experiment. And usually you'll have some sort of conclusion at the end. So what I've done on this particular site to try and show you how you'd use the site for that whole project is there's a page here called Method, Results, Discussion, Conclusion, and also a bibliography because the student's done a bit of research as well. So if I go to the method page, which at the moment is blank. Now this particular student, I'm just going to pop over here to my Google Drive for a second. I just want to show you what this student's done is created a folder inside Google Drive and collected all of their resources in one place. So here's the site that I was talking about. Next to it is a Google form because this student wants to collect some feedback on their work afterwards. There's a Google Sheets spreadsheet here where they've actually collected their data and also created some graphs based on that data. There's also a document here called Method where they've actually described how they did their experiment. They took a photo, and here's also a sketch from their sketchbook where they sketched out roughly how they were going to try and do the experiment. So go back to the site for a second. So I've got all these resources, right? I've got all these assets that I've collected in the process of this project. So I'll go back over here, and on my method page, what I'd like to do is put in that diagram that I sketched in my sketchbook, which I just scanned with my phone, took a photo of, and dropped it into Drive. So now what I can do is just go up to this image button here and upload an image, and that image is in my Drive, and there it is there. It's called the experiment sketch. So I go in there, and there is the experiment. Now, it's a little small, so I might just drag it out to make it a bit bigger. I might just center it on the page. And there's a nice button here, this little one called Uncrop. You can see that image has gotten a little bit sort of cropped when I dragged it. If I hit the Uncrop button, it'll expand it out for me and make it the right size. So there you go. There's my diagram of what I'd intended to do with my experiment. Now, the other thing is when I did my experiment in the method, I went to Google Docs and I wrote a nice Google Doc. In fact, let me just show it to you. If I go back into Drive and open up this Google Doc here. So this is the document that I wrote when I was describing how I was going to do my experiment. And there was 2 methods. There was part A and part B, or 2 parts rather. And so you can see there, that's what I've written. And I like the way that's laid out. You can see I've got a bit of a table and some bullet points and things going on here. So I could just copy this straight into the website as text, like I showed you before. But I actually like the way this is laid out. So rather than copy and paste it, I'm just going to insert this whole document into the site. So let's go back to the site. And I might pop down here underneath the diagram, and I'll put it down here underneath. So what I need to go is down to my insert menu. It's a Google Docs. So I'll find Docs. Opens up a little panel on the side. And usually it's pretty smart. It'll find the last few things you've done. And of course, it was the last thing I looked at. So here it is right here. So I open that up and say Insert. And it will insert that Google Doc into this window just like that. Now, you can resize it, change the dimensions of it if you like. Right now, if I was to show you this page finished, it's almost like a letterbox slot, and I'd be reading the document through this kind of slot that's on the page. So what I might do is just make it a little bit longer by dragging it down the page, and perhaps even just a little bit narrower, just like that. And I might just center it on the page. So that looks pretty good to me. And when I actually load this page, I'll be able to scroll through the document and read my actual method. So there you go. So I've inserted an image, I've inserted a document, I've inserted a YouTube video, and I've written on the page. What's next? Let's go to the results page. So on the results page, I've done my experiments. I created a spreadsheet. And let me just show you the spreadsheet. It's right here, where I did the experiment 6 times. And I collected all my data from those 6 times, and then I created an average down the bottom. And what I want to do is graph all this. And you know, there's a few graphs I can do there. And in fact, the easiest way to make a graph in Google Sheets is you just select the data you want with your mouse like that. And this little button up here that says Insert Chart will simply create a chart based on whatever I've selected. And you can see there's my chart right there. That's pretty easy, right? Now, I've actually done this previously, so I'm just going to get rid of this one and show you the ones I've already made. So here's the chart that looks at the averages. Here's the chart that actually looks at all 6 experiments. And here's a chart that looks at all 6 experiments, but it's looking at the sort of the trend lines within those experiments. So, okay, so that'd be great. I'd like to put those graphs and that data inside my project site. So let's go back here. And I want to insert the chart, okay? Go back to my insert menu, scroll down. You can see there it is right at the bottom there. It says charts. And when you insert a chart, because of charts created from a spreadsheet, it actually opens up different spreadsheets here. This is the one I want, this top one, most recent one. I'll say insert. But because the charts are inside the spreadsheet, what it does, it opens up the spreadsheet and says, these are the 3 charts that are part of this. Which ones would you like? Well, I actually want, first of all, I'd like this one. So I'll say add, and that pops that in there like that. And then I also want to do another one. So we'll say charts, and we'll grab the one. And let's grab the average one as well. And we'll also grab one more. We'll grab the one with the trend lines. There you go. So I'll put them all in like that. And just like I said before, you can pick up pieces of text and resize them and move them around. What I think I'll do here is make this one just slightly narrower. And then I'll take this one from below and I'll drag that up and pop that in that place so they're beside each other. And then this one down here with the trend lines, that's actually one I'm most interested in. So I'm just going to drag that out slightly and make that bigger. And so you can see now what I've done, I've used Google Sheets to go and collect my data, draw my diagrams, but I'm now bringing it into the project page here on the results page of the site. And I think it's a really nice way to sort of, you know, aggregate all your work together. You've created all these assets and now we're making them pretty and nice to look at, easy to read. On my discussion page here, I did actually do this earlier. You can see this is, I showed you before how you would insert a Google Doc into a page with some text. And this is the other way you could have done that, which is to simply type directly into the page itself. Either is fine. There's pros and cons to both, but that's how it would look if you just type straight into the page. And then very finally over here on the conclusion page, you can see I've got my conclusion here of my experiment. This is what I think that actually happened out of it. And what I'd really like here, when I get my teacher and my peers and my parents to look at my work, see my project, I'd love some feedback. So like I said, over here in Google Drive, I've created a Google form here to get some feedback. So now what I'll do is in the Google site, I'm going to come down under here and say insert a form. It's going to go into my forms collection, probably look at the most recent one. Here it is right here. So I say feedback on that and say insert. And then it's going to drop that right onto my page. And that looks pretty good. I think I'll center it because I like things centered. They kind of look neat. And now that goes straight onto the page like that. Now what I've got a home page. I've got a method page where I've inserted different bits and pieces that I've done. I've got the results page where I've collected all my graphs from my work, which is right there. Then I've got my discussion where I talk about what actually happened. Then I've got my conclusion where I talk about the result and also ask for some feedback. And finally, on this last page, I just created a page there and added a little bibliography of some other reading that I've done. So I hope you can see from that example that like I'm using a site to just pull in things from all over the place so that when I hand something to my teacher, I'm not actually handing them this collection of bits and pieces. I've actually organized it and aggregated into one place to make it really much nicer and easier to read. Now, right now, I'm the editor of this site. I'm the person who's made it, right? And this is editing mode. But when I share it with somebody, really what I want to do is give them the actual website. So what I can do up here on the publish button, just hit the publish button there. Now, I have actually published this previously. The first time you do this, it will just ask you to give it a name, which I've done. And you can see over here on the side here, it's telling me that since the last time I updated this, there's been a change to the home page, the method page, the results page, and the conclusion page. And it's saying, would I like to publish this? Yes, I would. I go publish. It then takes those changed pages, publishes them live, and you see this little box at the bottom pops up here. It says it's been published. Do you want to view it? Yes, I would. Click the view page. And now what I'm looking at is the actual finished website. And if I just go through there, you can see it actually looks pretty good. This is what I meant about the Google Doc being like in a scrollable window inside the page. If I go over to my my results page, you can see there's all my diagrams that are just going to show up on the page just like that. So it's pretty neat. Last thing I just will mention, and that is very often, especially our students, sometimes I forget what the number is. It's a pretty high number. It's like 60 or 70% of websites these days are accessed through a mobile device rather than a computer. So it's pretty important that whatever websites we design, they actually work on mobile as well as web. Now, in the old days of web design, you would build a website for a computer, and then you'd go and start again, and you'd rebuild a second website designed for a small screen. We don't have to do that anymore. Google Sites, if I hit this little preview button up the top here and hit that, you'll see it'll go into this preview mode, and these buttons along the bottom here, it'll show me this is what, let's go to the home page. This is what this website would look like if it's on a computer, or this is what it would look like if it was on a tablet, and this is what it would look like if it was on a phone. And you can see it all just automatically gets reformatted. If I go over here and look at, say, my results page, you can see it's put the graphs right on the page just like that. So whether I'm looking at it on a computer or a tablet or a mobile device, doesn't really matter. Google Sites will do all the hard work of figuring out how to resize and rescale everything so it works perfectly nicely on whatever platform you're using.
And the other thing, Chris, that's awesome, by the way. I'm very impressed by your science knowledge that you just displayed. Something I'm constantly learning new things about your bag of tricks. My other thing I was going to say in terms of something that Google Sites does really easily that used to be so laborious was that when you publish that site and you went and looked at the live site, like that URL is the URL to access it. And so I a lot of anyone who designs sites in I say the olden days, but not really like not horse and cart days, but back a while ago would know that you had to actually you had to map things to other locations, etc., so on and so forth. But nowadays that site, it is live. You don't have to find somewhere else to host it and so on and so forth. And it looks like you made yourself a short link, did you?
I did, yeah. I was going to say, if anyone watching this wants to go and check out that and see what it looks like themselves, whether it's on a mobile device or a computer or whatever, if you just go to bit.ly/SRP demo site, that's Science Research Project demo site, and I don't know, you able to drop that in the chat?
I can, yeah. Hold on, just leave it there. bit.ly Science Research Project. That's not what you called it, was it? Yeah, no, that was what you called it.
SRP demo site, and it's case sensitive, of course.
Yes.
So yeah, if you're watching this and you want to check out how that looks on an actual device or a phone, or I did just publish it. It is now on the internet, and you can look on your phone or a computer. It doesn't matter. It'll work just as well on both. I think once you've used sites a few times and you realise how powerful they actually are, and the fact that we could go from like basically a blank page to a finished site just because we had our assets in advance, we'd done the science experiment, we collected the data and so on, actually producing that finished product is pretty easy and pretty simple and fast, and I think it looks nice too. I think it looks.
I think it does too, and I think you're right. Like I think the drag and drop nature of the new Google Sites helps you, even those of us who are challenged with graphic design like I am, helps us to be better. The other thing that I think is great to think about with sites, so Chris, as you were talking about, this is the final product, is that all you could have been adding, like, so you could have the site at the start of the project and actually have this as a great way of tracking the progress through the project. So, you know, the teacher could actually be checking in, okay, so you have milestones or you have certain things that the kids actually have to do as they progress through a project, which obviously is relevant however you're defining projects, so an inquiry unit, whatever it is. And then they can just build a new page for each thing. And you as a teacher could also develop a template that you wanted them to use, and then they would have all the pages preloaded and all they have to do is put in their content. So whether, you know, they're doing some inquiry project and they've built a Google Slides show about something that's demonstrating their knowledge to that point, they just actually add it like Chris did with the doc into the site, and they don't have to worry about the designing of the site. All they have to do is worry about ways that they can demonstrate their learning at certain intervals throughout your project or your inquiry unit as well, which is very powerful.
I didn't mention in this, but I guess, you know, I probably should. It's just like every other Google tool. It's collaborative. So you've got a little share button at the top there where you can go and invite in other people to work on you with this. So like when I was in a school and our year 10 students were actually doing a science research project, we did exactly what you said, Kimberly. We gave them a template and it had like the necessary pages that we wanted in it, you know, aim, method, discussion, whatever. But that was a group project, and students would often work in small teams to do those things. And the ability to be able to all come in and collaborate on a project together and all contribute content, and, you know, and you open that up to, like, you know, projects in English class where every student maybe claims a particular page and writes their poetry, or, you know, a maths class where they're doing, however you want to interpret that as a teacher. That ability to have group work in a shared online space like this, it's pretty darn powerful.
It is. And Paul just asked about having a page for each child, and you can, Paul. So a lot of the things that teachers will use sites for, exactly that concept of, having your top level site for whatever it is that you're doing, and then each individual kid could have a page that they could add to. With the current permissions, the way it works, so if a kid had editing access to one page, they would have editing access to all students' pages. So that would be the only asterisk on that, is just like a Google Doc. If they have edit access, they have full edit access.
We did previously, Paul, in the earlier version of sites, which was kind of powerful but a little clunky and horrible to use, to be honest. But one thing it did have was a thing called page level permissions, where you could actually create individual permissions for various pages. And so you could have, you know, one student editing one page and so on. That's not in this version yet, but it is amongst our top ranked requests. I wouldn't be surprised if it does turn up in here at some point.
Yeah, I think I have submitted that feature request myself multiple times. So while we're speaking about making this into a template, Chris, do you think you could click back and just show us the sites templates as a segue into talking about templates? Yeah, so something that I think is probably not that well known necessarily about all of the Google Workspace products is that, you know, we often do exactly what Chris has got right now. You go to Drive, go new doc, new sites, etc., or you can use the quick link of docs.new will create a new doc for you, sites.new, new site, etc. But if you actually go to sites.google.com or docs.google.com or slides.google.com, you actually get the landing page for that particular app. And what actually is available on that landing page are a whole lot of templates. So you can see down the bottom of Chris's page there, he has all the recent science sites that are in the domain. So these are filtered for owned by anyone, because that's the default in our training domain, but he could just see ones by himself. But up the top, he has his template gallery. And if he expands that out, there's actually a student portfolio template for sites already pre-made in there. And what you could actually do as a teacher is grab that template as a starting point, tweak it, and then if you have, I will say this is based on the permission set for your particular domain, but it is possible to publish a template back into the domain for others in your domain to pick up and use. So others in your school, for example, to use. And there are a whole lot of great templates already done for you. So once again, we're all about how do we capture the learning, and the learning is not about making the site with the technology, because this platform that they're using for sites today will be superseded by something else, which will be superseded by something else. So the software itself is not the important part. The learning process is the important part. And this just removes some of that time that can be taken up with them, having to do the stuff that probably isn't the most important about the learning. So this is a very simple portfolio site, but yeah, as you were talking, Chris, I thought I didn't actually check sites templates. I wonder if there is a project template in there.
So, side note, I used to teach. I taught web design for a long time, and teaching old sites took forever. Like, you could spend 3 hours trying to get someone just to make a basic site. My daughter called me the other day. She's just started dating this guy who's quite talented, and she found out that her boyfriend doesn't have a website. And she said, "You should have a website. You should totally have a website." She called me and said, "Dad, what can I use to make a website?" And I said, "Well, try Google Sites." And she'd never seen it before. She hadn't even heard of it, but she'd never seen it. And she got off the phone and she called me back an hour later and she said, "Take a look at what I just made." And it was beautiful. And it had like beautiful headers and all the information, and the videos were all in there from his performances. And it's like, if my daughter, who knows nothing about technology and is not all that interested in technology, can in an hour produce a beautiful site, I know it's a cool product. Yeah,
I 100% agree. I used to teach old school web design, and it was like a term of teaching. Right. So now it's an instant thing. But these templates are a really powerful thing, and they are something that, there are, a variety of templates that are available within each of the apps themselves, but they are also something that you can add to the template gallery over time. And so you can design, a great way of kids demonstrating their learning journey throughout a project or an inquiry or whatever it is that you're doing, and you can publish that template, and then it can just be grabbed by whoever it is that needs it in your school, and they can, tweak it and modify it. But it takes that time away from that part of the learning, which is great. But we have so many opportunities to engage with these apps in learning, and we want to capture the other stuff as much. So.
And one of the things that in sites now, they've just added this in fairly recently, is a thing called placeholders, which is what you're seeing here. These grey boxes are called placeholders. So when I click on that, it will prompt me to sort of do something with it. So it's a space for something that's not yet there. But if I was to go back into that sort of untitled one that I started creating earlier, like on this blank page here, one of the things you can insert now is a placeholder, and that's fairly new. So as you're designing a site, you might be designing a site for younger students, say, and you want them to put in a picture and then write something next to it. What you can do is add a placeholder, right there, and you say, I want the picture to be that big, and then I'm going to add another placeholder. Now, by default, it goes underneath, but you can just pick it up and move it up to where you actually want it, and then resize it to where you want it. And when a student comes and uses this, all you need to let them know is, okay, I want a picture on this side, and I want some text on that side. When they click the plus button, there's all the different things they can add there. So they can add their picture, or they can just start typing straight into it. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do with the placeholders. And if you don't, for some reason in your domain, you don't have access to the template thing, there are some workarounds where you can simply create a site, share it with your students. So you create like a template site, share it with all your students there, just like that, add their names in there. And then when they get in there, they can come to this thing and say, duplicate the site. And they literally make a copy of the site, and now they're the new owner, and then they can continue on using it. So there's a couple of workarounds if you don't have the templates, but it is nice if you can use them.
Absolutely. And speaking of templates, as I mentioned, there are templates for all of our major apps. So if you go to docs.google.com, you'll see all the docs ones, or yes, if you click on that arrow, Chris, you get templates, right? From a template.
You get either a blank document. And normally if you just click the word Google Doc, you'll get a blank Google Doc. If you fly out the side here, you can either do a blank Google Doc or from a template, then it'll take you over to the Google Docs site and throw you into, now, you notice the top here, it's got Chrome for EDU. That's this domain that I'm using right now. But next to it says general, and that's all the general publicly available templates. And there's things there like, writing a letter, or doing writing a report, creating an essay, class notes. There's a whole bunch in there. I know, when I was teaching sort of business type classes, I had to get my kids to learn how to write a business letter or a resume, that kind of stuff. I mean, there are templates to start with. And for those kids, those kids where, they'll sit and stare at a blank page for half an hour before they start typing because they're just not sure what to put there. Giving them a template and giving them that starting point sometimes can be a really useful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if we're speaking of projects, Chris, in the sheets, struggling with which S product it was, the sheets template, yeah, you noticed when we were planning out this webinar that there's actually specific like project tracking planning templates, like Gantt charts, which is not a common term in education, but it is a common term when you have if you're doing a business class or you're doing something where you want kids to actually be using some of that language that's used in the business world.
Right, and as Kimberly and I were planning for this, we had a little mini debate about like this concept of this word project, because right now the word project gets used in things like project-based learning or students creating a project about something, and that's I think with the science example I tried to show you earlier, that's the approach we're taking there with that sort of that concept of project. But I know from having taught year 11 and 12 classes that sometimes a lot of those subjects that kids will do at those high levels, they'll take a different view of the word project, and it will be all about project planning and how do you manage a project, how do you plan a project, how do you sort of deal with the intricacies of project management. And that's a whole other interpretation of the word project. But if that's how you'd like to interpret it, there's also some things down there like Gantt charts, project timelines, project tracking, events marketing timelines, all sorts of things in there that you can use just to get started on.
Awesome. And then the final one that, there's templates for forms as well, but if you can go to the slides templates, Chris, because I know slides, I think slides still your favorite of all the apps. Like if you had to pick one app that you were allowed to have and that was it, and you had to get rid of the rest of the Workspace apps, would it be slides that you kept?
I don't know. It's like trying to choose your favorite child.
I know it is. I know. I think it used to be. That's why I asked. I was like, I'm pretty sure you confidently used to say slides was your favorite. So
yeah,
others are leveling up.
I don't have no spreadsheets.
No,
I can't imagine a world without spreadsheets.
I totally can. I know I'd be fine with it. So these are the slides templates that exist as well. But we wanted to also share with you that beyond these slides templates, and it's the same for docs and things like that, but there are some really fabulous free template galleries for slides online. That design, there's so many educational ones on there. So Slides Carnival is the one that Chris is going to right now. This is the first one that I probably ever really used. And of course you read that pop up before you say agree.
Reader, yeah.
Yeah, so you read to all terms and conditions. And one of the cool things about this, you can see up the top, you can filter by different styles, or you can search for specific things as well. I have noticed, Chris, when I came in here before, that they've definitely monetized their site in a way that they hadn't previously, because you do get some pop-up ads now, and you'll see there's ads within the templates now. See how there's a pop-up one there. But these are, I'm totally happy for them to have ads because these are phenomenal and they're free, so they should get some money from it. But the idea is you come through, you find a template that you're happy with, like Chris has done right now, and if you scroll down, there you go, you can click there. You can click that, it'll just take you down the page. And this is actually the template. So Chris, you should be able to click through the slides just there. So you can get a feel for what actually this particular template looks like. You can see that one of the really cool things that exists in the Slides Carnival's templates is that they kind of tell you like what you should be doing. So it's like, this is where you would put a big statistic, or use an image for impact, on those sorts of things. So it's actually helping you to design slides more effectively, which when we're talking about communicating meaning is so important.
Yeah. And all these different slide types, like here's one for including an image, here's one for including a graph. Like it's the same kind of collection of types of slides, but thematically, like each slide deck is different, but it has the same types of slides in it.
Yeah, and you can see there's a little yellow button just below it. It says use as Google Slides theme, and this will literally just make you orangey yellow. It will literally just make you a copy of this slide deck into your Drive, and then you can edit it. And
I will say, when I was working in a school and we were at that stage, my school had gone Google, but there were still some people in the school that were still using Microsoft stuff. And so we were straddling both worlds for a while. And I remember being asked how could we create a template gallery, because our school had some templates that we wanted our teachers to use for various official things. And we were trying to figure out, we've got all these PowerPoint templates, like how do we get them into Google? And you know what? It's much simpler if you just convert everything to Google format. And then if you later on do need to put it into a Microsoft format for some reason, it's way easier just to go into a Google Slides thing and say download as PowerPoint in order to get your PowerPoint version. And it's less mucking around than trying to live in PowerPoint land and trying to figure out how to make things Google when you want it Google. And I like the fact that they've done that here, like use as a Google Slides theme or download as a PowerPoint template. That'll actually download a file for you. But, you know, if you go into the Google Slides one and just open that up and it says make a copy, so it's making a copy of their master and just doing its thing. There you go. So here's the slides presentation. So let's say you come in here, you make your presentation, you throw out the slides you don't need, you duplicate the ones you need more of, you add the content, change things around until you're happy with it. And then if you did need it in the other format, it's so easy just to go File, Download, pull it out as PowerPoint if you really need that. But honestly, I don't know why people need to do that these days. Just Slides work so well. But just for those occasional times when you need to live in both worlds, start in the Google world first, because it's much easier to go the other way.
Spoken like a true Googler. And the other one that I just thought would be worth sharing, the other template gallery, and then we'll just talk about some note taking, we'll do some Jamboard and keep stuff to finish off, is Slidesmania. And I feel like Slidesmania totally like went a bit manic for using the words, trying to come up with a way of play on words for Slidesmania last year. And I believe I actually saw a workshop with the lady who started this, and her daughter, she's not an educator, but her daughter or something is in school and was asking her to help her with making some projects and things look cool. And so she started designing some templates and then shared them online, and everybody was just so excited by how phenomenal they are. And one of the things I like about Slidesmania, which makes it a little bit different to Slides Carnival, is that there's a whole lot, like they've built these interactive slide decks in here. So a whole lot of games like choose your own adventure style, but not just a choose your own adventure story, but like Jeopardy. And I don't know, I just said Jeopardy because it's the only American thing I could think of. But if you click on up the top, Chris, on the education menu, you'll see the top one under is interactive templates. And so they're all templates designed to be built into like a game or a quiz or something like that. And they're all pre-built for you, beautiful, great to use. And yeah, another fabulous resource that exists.
Oh, cool. I haven't used this before. This looks really good.
Yeah, Slidesmania is pretty amazing. The notebook style one, I think it is in there, where because so much of the world is still remote learning and teaching, like she's literally made like book kind of things that people can use to make it feel like they're, you know, actually kids are getting the opportunity to touch books again and stuff like that. It's quite fascinating. So
nice.
Yeah, Slidesmania is very, very, very impressive, I think.
And if people were paying attention, they might have noticed too that I don't know the address of Slidesmania or Slides Carnival off the top of my head. I assume it's slidescarnival.com, but I don't know. So both times when you said it, I just went to Google and just searched it. And that's how I find everything these days.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember the web address to basically anything. Maybe most of the Workspace products, like I know docs.google.com, but I never would type that in. So, okay, and then we thought we'd just finish off this afternoon talking about some brainstorming and note-taking, because that's obviously also really important stuff to think about when you are doing projects or inquiries or whatever it is that you are working on. And we thought we'd talk about two particular tools that Chris and I both love. So the first one is Google Jamboard. And this is one that I always talk about came out of obscurity last year into the mainstream, because previously I think it hadn't really been known about in education. We have a Jamboard, which is like a physical interactive whiteboard that you can purchase, but they weren't designed for education. So there's not many of them in education. They're actually were designed for business. But the software that sits behind that is actually freely available online as well. So jamboard.google.com, or as Chris just demoed, you can actually create a new Jamboard straight within Drive as well. And all of these are saved and synced into your Drive, which is awesome. But it's basically an online digital whiteboard. And so in that sense, the possibilities are somewhat endless because you can use this however you choose.
I just drew that with my finger.
That was very impressive. I know I never like to do that. I don't like to do it on the trackpad without anything. Beautiful. You can tell that you're an art teacher, Chris.
I know, right?
So as Chris is demoing, you can just annotate and draw on here. So you can insert post-it notes or text fields. You can insert images and shapes and things like that. And as Chris will continue to demo. But one of the really cool things as well is that you can change the backgrounds in here. And so you can upload, keeping in that sort of template concept, you can upload images or things that you've created yourself into the background. There are some, nobody likes cats, Chris. Everybody likes dogs.
Oh, well. It's made of dogs, it's made of cats.
I know it was. The reason the internet was invented was to search cat videos. So you can see here, Chris is showing there's different backgrounds. And then the cool thing about adding a background in here is then you can, have kids add things over the top. So create some sort of thinking canvas for the kids and then have them drop post-it notes in the right spot. So there's all kinds of things that you can use it for. And I'll just share in the chat as well, and maybe we'll drop it on the screen, Chris, because people who watch the recording may not get access to the chat. If you could drop that into a text box or a post-it note maybe on the screen, I could create a short link to it. But
I've not got the chat there.
Okay, hold on, I'll do it. Can you share your Jamboard with me? Because that's actually one thing that we haven't mentioned about Jamboard yet, is that it is just like all of the other Workspace tools. That one is fully collaborative. So Chris and I can be in here together, and I will do that now. Okay. So I'm just dropping this link on here. Chris, if maybe you want to navigate to it, just so rather than me taking over screen sharing. So we were looking the other day, Chris and I, for some great ideas of templates that you could use in Jamboard for education context. And a friend of ours who we were lucky enough to work with in a previous life, Holly Clark, has done this great collection of different Jamboard templates that they're not all hers. She's curated this list for us of ways to different backgrounds that you can upload into Jamboard to be able to use it for a whole range of different ways and activities. So any of these are clickable and able to be utilized in your particular context.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna can I try something real quickly here? I'm gonna go and create a new slide.
You do realize we're supposed to finish in 2 minutes, though, Chris. So how quickly can you do it?
I can do this in 2 minutes. Oh, you want to do it?
Well, I'm just going to talk about Google Keep very quickly. Can you do this in 1 minute and talk about Google Keep in 1 minute?
Yeah. You start talking about stuff, and I just want to show people the idea of. So if I go in here and just make a box, make a shape like, I don't know, that, and then grab that shape and just make another shape just like that, and I'll call this one, put a text box here, so a text box. We'll call this one word starting with SH and word starting with CH, right? So it might be like a phonics activity for young students. So I go in, this is the SH box, this is the CH box. So you set it up, and I can make it pretty and add colors and all the rest of it, make it look really nice. But then what you do is you come up here to File and you download that as a PNG or a JPEG image, right? I'm just downloading that now. There it goes. It's just popped into my downloads folder. So if I now go over to my Jamboard and onto the page itself and set the background, and instead of just picking the ones that are there, I click on this button here and do my search from my upload, and I go and find that file I just made. I believe it's that page there. When I put it in there, that then uploads and becomes the background of my slide. So making those template things like what Kimberly was talking about, that's a really easy way to do it, because the shape of the slide and the shape of the Jamboard are the same shape. So just make them in slides, export them out, pull them straight into here, and then you can create your, over on the side there, I'd put a picture of, chips and a ship and a chef and whatever else, and then to get the kids to drag them into the correct boxes. So making the activities is actually pretty straightforward. I made that in a minute. So
yeah,
really
you did. Very impressive. And I realized that you did a phonics activity, not a spelling. So I wrote Chris as my CH word, but that's not phonetically the same as the ch sound that you were talking about. So,
right.
Chris, just to finish off, can you open Keep very quickly? And we'll just do 1 minute highlight reel of Google Keep.
Keep.google.com.
It's like everything. Oh, look at that handsome gentleman.
Who's that handsome devil?
So Google Keep, if you haven't come across it before, is our note-taking app. Basically, it's a series of kind of like multimedia post-it notes, for lack of a better way of describing it. So you can type a title in here. You can add notes down there. You can put, in bulleted lists, check boxes, etc. It's fully collaborative, so you can add as many people as you like to your Keep notes. It's also fully integrated into docs and slides and things, so you can grab Keep notes and drag them straight into docs and slides, etc. There you go. Chris is adding labels, so you can actually start to label notes within Keep, which kind of effectively operates like a folder if you're not used to Gmail, and this concept of grouping things together as a way of making sure you can find them again. You can change the color, you can freehand annotate or draw in there. You can add on the mobile version voice notes, and it'll actually transcribe it into text as well as save your audio. And you can set reminders, which is a really powerful thing around, particularly for adults. If you have your shopping list in here, you can set a geographic reminder. So whenever you go near a particular location where there is shops, it will actually pop up on your phone and tell you, hey, this is your shopping list. You should go in there. And that's a really great resource as well. So the fact that they are collaborative and they integrate into docs makes them a really great way, and slides makes a really great way of gathering thoughts and just tracking things throughout the learning process. So it's a simple, like, you can have it on any one of your devices, and you can easily and quickly take a simple note, as Chris showed. You can add a label to it, and suddenly it's actually going to have this huge collection of notes and resources. You can add URLs in here, so it links off to key pages, and it's a way of just having a digital note-taking app at your fingertips on any device that you happen to be operating on. And because it's synced to your Google account, it's accessible on every device you'd ever need it from.
Yeah, I don't have many notes in here because this is a demo account we use for other things. But in my actual real account that I live in, I have thousands of notes that are all sorts of things, and you can just find them super easily.
Yeah, because
I added that location reminder there where it says Woolworths, and when I go down the road now to Woolworths, as I walk near the store, my phone will buzz me and go, "Don't forget the milk," or whatever. The note, I'll take a note here.
That's right, which is pretty awesome.
I'll make a note.
That's right. Okay, we are at time, so we are going to stop talking now, and I'm going to stop the recording. But thanks for coming along on a bit of a chat and journey with us. We are doing this, if you are watching the recording or live, we are doing these twice a term. And so the next one, I'm just trying to pull it up so I don't misquote myself. The next one we are doing is on the 13th of May, so next term, and we're doing gathering data for assessment and reporting with Google, which Chris Betcher sounds like you will get a great opportunity to talk about Google Sheets as part of that. So I'm pretty sure you're going to want to turn up to that one, Chris.
Getting excited already.
All right. Thanks very much, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording.